Right. Do I start? Is that the way this is looking? That sounds good. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Alan Levine, and I'm glad to have you here. And we're going to try to walk through some activities to give you some experience with H5P. It would be helpful, I think, for everybody here if we can have some introductions from folks and see, like, okay, I'm seeing that people are saying that they came to the keynote. So um, I have things planned to hopefully be not as much me talking as much some things. Of course, it's a little bit hard when I don't really see anybody or anything. So we're going to rely on chat um, as to if you have questions or need help. I also encourage you if you need help to use that little what's it, the reactions button, the little smiley guy in the bottom of your WebEx interface. If you need help, click your raise hand button. We've got like 6 skilled experts here who will be able to help you out, answer questions. We can use the chat. And as we get deeper into doing the H5P stuff, they might want to say, hey, let's go into a breakout room so they can help you one-on-one. But it's really important again, because I have no idea what you're looking at or what you're doing. If you can make sure that you just do not hesitate to communicate if you need some help or if you have a question. I really like being interrupted, and so you can use help, you can use the chat, and I just want to make sure that no one feels like they're lost in this experience because I tend to go pretty quick with this. So my presentation, I'm not going to reiterate, but it's about a project I'm working on in British Columbia. Oh, I am reiterating. We're working with faculty to add H5P interaction to press books to sort of give students additional ways of interacting and practice with textbook content. So it's more than them just reading or more than them looking at series of questions, but actually H5P is a technology that allows you to put quite a range of interactive activities, not only into Pressbooks, but into any kind of website. It works in LMSs, it works in HTML sites, it works very well in WordPress. And one of the important things that I want to stress about this is like H5 platforms. So I'm going to suggest one place for you to use H5P, but if you have access to something else, it doesn't really matter which one you use because the H5P part where we're going to be doing work is actually the same in every environment. And even in the second half, I'm going to show you, if we get that far, how to use an actual application you can download to your computer where you can use H5P, you can create it right on your desktop. And so you don't even need access to a WordPress site or a Pressbooks or anything like that. So, Kathy, Renee, and everybody else, Serene, are you guys ready to go? Are you ready to start cooking? Okay. And again, I'm really going to rely on you messaging. My good friend and colleague Cyan Proctor is here to sort of be the traffic director and alert me when people are hand raising and doing all that. But I'm going to go right to my screen sharing, and you're going to be stuck with looking at my screen. So I want to reiterate that all of this information I'm going to show you is on a website that I made, and so it's going to be there for as long as I live and as long as the web is alive. Well, I can't promise you that, but this all will be available later if you want to come back to, or if we don't get very far with it. And if you don't get that link, ask Cyan, she'll get it to you in the chat. You don't need to be looking at it right away, but what I've done in this site is to lay out all the activities with examples and links to help you go through it. So it's not, it might not be easy to see that site as I am trying to demonstrate, but I'm hopefully going to do just little bits of screen sharing set you up with things to do, and then we'll get right into it. So the main workshop, cooking and spicing up, I go a little bit overboard with my metaphors here, and you'll find kitchen references. But I'm going to go right into the first activity here. And so maybe I don't know here how many people here actually are cooks. I'm kind of like new to cooking, but I've been learning. And so I want to put out the metaphor here. Okay, you want to cook a great meal. Do you first like just throw open, the appliance drawer and pull out the Vitamix, or do you just open the drawer and pull out some utensil? And so you probably don't, but often with things like H5P, people like say, okay, here's all the tools. What is it going to do for me? And so I don't think that's the right way to go about cooking, is to start with the tools. So what we're going to do first is actually look at some example dishes, some meals, and things to give you an idea about what might be possible. So I'm going to skip through the little premise, and I'm going to introduce you to two places that we're going to go to in a minute. You don't have to do this now, although if you do, it doesn't matter. That are places you can go to that you can find a good collection of H5P content. And more specifically, they're set up so you can find it in your discipline, because that is probably the most important thing. So this first one is from an organization in Ontario called eCampus Ontario, and it is called H5P Studio. So they are a large organization. You think Texas is big. And so this is providing support across a large province to many educators, many of them who are using or interested in this H5P technology. So this is like a quote unquote repository, if you will, or a collection of H5P content bits that people have made it or practiced with, that are available to you to not only look at and get ideas from, but these are also licensed, so you can download them, and I'll show you that in a second, and use them or learn from them in your own work. It's only available for people in Ontario to upload to, but it's open for you and me who aren't in Ontario to go out and get. So probably the most important thing is to sort of like look for things in your discipline and find things of interest, because that's your interest. So who wants to yell at a subject here that I should try? Come on. Sit in the demo.
Technology.
What's that? Technology, right?
Technology.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to pick technology, and I think I just need to hit return. Let's see how this works. Okay, so these are all technology and engineering. These things under type are the particular H5P tools. So, and if I scroll down, like there are many pages within technology. So we could look at, I'm going to go somewhere in the middle of the mix here, and I'm just going to scout for something that's kind of interesting. So maybe something in bridges, okay? And so this is actually showing me something, I've never seen this before, that Mary Spencer from Georgian Active Video. This is one of the things that H5P content can do. And it's pretty powerful. So a lot of people use video, right? You embed a YouTube video in your course and you put a couple questions around it. What this adds to H5P is, as students are watching, and I'm not going to make you watch this video, although it might be interesting to watch a video about bridges. Okay, so this professor looks like she's put together a video that has narration, but you can use any video on YouTube that has some content that maybe you want to break down into places where you want your students to perhaps stop and think about a topic. So each one of these little dots on the bottom, this is what's known as an interaction point. So I'm going to stop here, and what would happen is, as a student is watching this video, it would stop when it hits this point, and it comes with a little practice word. A blank crossing that allows water to flow through soil. Anybody know what this is? No. I'll be wrong. I'll put viaduct. and then I check. Nope, it's wrong. So please review the video in your notes. So continue. And then, so as I go through, oh, I need to answer the quiz. Yeah. So it's not going to let me go on until I get the right answer. What's, oh, culvert. That's the answer. So anyhow, there are many kind of interactions you can put here. There's a multiple choice. You can bring up a text box. You can bring up an image. You can bring up a number of interacting size. So this is a multiple choice. So which code governs the design of all bridges? Oh, I got it wrong. Oh, it must be this one. Anyhow, so interactive video is rather effective. Lets you take existing video content and sort of put within it some things that you could sort of say to students, hey, this is important, or hey, this is worth doing some practice right here. So this is pretty interesting. So if I think, wow, I think I want to share this, or I might want to use this. You may not. That's okay. What I'm going to ask you to do is make sure you copy the web address for this, because at the end of this little first section, I'm asking people to share it within a form. But there's two very key things that are important within H5P when you're looking at it. And always look for this on the bottom. There's a thing that says reuse this content. Okay, so what happens is you can take this interactive video thing and you can download it as an H5P file. And I'll do that, and it's going to save it as a file on my desktop, and I'm just going to save it. Thanks. That entire piece of interaction, and then I can either use it directly in my site, or I can change it, so I can remix it. And this works for anything that you find within H5P, and that's why we think it's pretty interesting to use. So what we ask you to do in this first part is to, you can just randomly explore around the eCampus Ontario. There's like 2,000 or 3,000 things you can find in here. Some of them are not so great. Some of them are really good. And so you could look within subject area. Let's see, how do I unselect that? Let's just reload. I don't want to necessarily have a subject area. But you can also, if you're interested in H5P, like it has hotspot. I know that. So there's image hotspots. So if I'm like looking to see, like I've been looking at there's a funny thing about this search engine. It picks up everything with images in it. So actually, if I just say hotspots, you'll find all the ones. Oh, now I'm actually within technology and engineering still, but this lets me zero in on all the ones in technology and engineering that uses the image hotspots. So this is a good way to explore the different ways that people have been using H5P. So what eCampus Ontario has is pretty fantastic for doing that. So that's one option you can use. I'm going to introduce another one. Am I going too fast, folks? And this is all spelled out here. I sort of showed you how to do this, what I demonstrated. So what we're asking you to do again is to just find something really quick that catches your eye, download, and then share the website address. Make sure you save a copy of that, because I'm interested in the things that you find. There's another really good interest, especially if you're interested in open textbooks. So Pressbooks, which is one of the big platforms, and I know it's in use in a lot of places in Arizona, allows you to do, of course, publishing of open textbooks, but it also has built in the ability to include H5P content. This Pressbooks directory allows you to find open textbooks across 90-some different individual sites. So you can search for textbooks of interest. Anybody use this? Of over 2,000 books. But again, you can filter by subject. So who wants to yell at a subject this time? Give me a favorite subject.
We have a question, and it says, so is the interactive video just loaded into H5P, or is H5P is what allows the instructor to add the question?
H5P, it does both. When you go into the editing, and that's what we're going to do in our second part, You give it the address for the YouTube video, and then H5P adds on the layer of these interactive things. It becomes H5P content. It's not video anymore.
Thank you. That was from Andrea.
Okay. Thanks for asking a question, Andrea. So what subject do folks want here me to look at?
Forensic
Writing,
science.
psychology, forensics. Well, I got to pick one that's on the list here. Let's just.
Great.
Sorry. All right.
We've heard writing in the chat. As
Okay.
a area.
That sounds good. So all textbooks that it has in its collection, and it's like 41 that are in this category, and we can see that there's 41. But what is really interesting about this is that I can add another filter for show me the ones about press books about writing that have a certain number of H5P activities. So if I want to find ones with any H5P activities, I would click 1. And so what it's going to do is now it's going to show me, oh, I'm down to 6, which is not like a huge number, but it could allow you to get in here. And so you see it has this little icon. And so this academic writing basics, that is 8 H5P activities. This one has 43. That's pretty good. So, and actually I know the author, Arlie's pretty amazing. So that's really interesting. And so like, if I want to see like how this author has used H5P, well, I got to do a little trick because the button doesn't do anything, but I have a secret trick for you. So I'm actually going to go to this Pressbooks title. And here's something. This will work for any Pressbooks link that you find out there. And you type the word H5P dash listing to the end of the web address. And what this will do, believe it or not, this will show me a summary of all the H5P content that this author has put into this textbook. So we have some essay activities. We have here an image hotspots, which we've seen, an image slider. But so this is another way to explore this sort of interaction. So I can view this question sort activity the author has in their textbook. What I don't have is the context. So I don't know exactly how this is embedded in there, but I can see like, oh, this is kind of interesting. So I want to play this game of what is a research question? So is this not a research question? And basically in this drag and word drag thing, it more or less, if you drop it in the right area, it kind of stays there. And if it doesn't, it will fly out. So more or less, this is a sort of a way you can set up, this works on any kind of image content, and you can create multiple drop areas, and then you create the little things that you want people to match. And then you click check, and I got 6 out of 8. You know, and so this is a practice thing. Actually, this tool does have the ability where you can give feedback depending whether they got a perfect score, if they've got 75%, etc. But if you want to on in your publisher, in your interest area that has H5P, Pressbooks directory is sort of a good way to go about it. And so I explain all of this as well in this section, how I went about. In this example, I looked at some math ones. I actually found an entire textbook about renal lesions in proteinuric dogs. I don't even know what that means, but it has 125 H5P activities. Fascinating. I give you my URL trick, and it shows you how to get to all those things. And then I just have a couple examples. I believe in a lot of examples. So, so we get all that. Same thing. When you get to any H5P content, click that reuse button. You want to download that to your computer, just so you have something to play with later when we get into the H5P editor. And then a few other suggestions where there's some places that if those two don't really work for you. But whatever you do, I want you to spend maybe 15 minutes, if you can sort of follow my directions, see what you can come up with. And then I have a Google form where I ask you just to share the results of what you found. So this first part of the workshop is just finding some tasty samples of H5P elsewhere, because I'm curious to hear what you come across, like what catches your eye. Don't worry too much about how the thing works or how you edit it. We're going to get to that in a second, but just sort of see, like, can you find something that looks of interest and say, like, either I could see how I could use this, or I could use this kind of functionality. I again want to make sure that we get back to, this is the particular link that we're going to go to. This is the page that has this first activity that I call sampling. So is everybody clear what we're doing here? Are you often doing it? I often don't know. Okay. All we're doing, Andrea, is just trying to find things that are of interest, whether, you know, and that are H5P content. So we're often searching. Will depend on you letting us know if you need help or have any questions. I'm going to set up my notifications so I can sort of see as the form comes in and responses. It can get really lonely out here, and so someone can say hello. This is the sign of the workshop.
Hello.
Hi.
Someone. Hello. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm a little irreverent. Well, you know, this is a disembodied experience, you know.
Very much so.
So I'm just making sure I get my notifications. And
So Kathy's having an issue about
Okay.
Pressbooks. Sorry, but nothing seemed to be happening when she clicks search.
I think you might have to hit it. Often you get 0 results, and it's very small on the top of the screen. So you might want to start out much more with general and not very specific searches, because, you know, 2,000 books is a lot, but I think their subject areas are not really broad.
So we asked for the links for Pressbooks. I put that in there, and then Deidre's asking, "Where's the link that we post?"
Okay, I'll get that up. It's at the very bottom of the page, but I
Michael.
will.
Thank you, Michael. Michael
Okay.
put it.
Go, Michael. That's good.
I think we addressed everybody in the chat.
Okay.
If we didn't, feel free to unmute yourself and let us know that we didn't address your question.
And I'm doesn't necessarily have to be in your subject area. You know, you can get a lot of good ideas by looking at what, you know, English teachers look at what biology teachers have done, and forensic science people might get something out of seeing how a philosophy teacher put something together. There are, I'll just keep blabbing on and distracting you while you're doing this, but H5P, as we'll see, offers 41 different types of content types, of things you can create. And some of them are pretty simple, and a few of them are just related to different ways to displaying content. So there's something that allows you to do those little accordion folders that kind of open up drawers to reveal more content. You can do those things where you can have a slider to compare, like, before and after of the image juxtaposition, some kind of QR thing that I have no idea what it does. There's an audio recorder, which kind of doesn't really work on all devices. And so there's a few things that are just kind of content. The ones we're interested are the ones that provide some kind of activity, or especially ones that offer feedback to students. So, I mean, you get your garden variety multiple choice, but there's these really good ones called Drag the Words. I think you saw one before where you actually have like a fill in the blank with maybe 5, 6. I've seen people do it with like 20 different words that you pull from a list on the right and you drop them into the sentence. There's a click the words one where you have a body of text and you do things like, I don't know, if you're teaching, grammar, you might ask your students to click all the ones that are, passive participles. So it's a way of working with a body of text. True, false, like the oldest kind of question out there. And so true, false are pretty simple to do, but they do come in handy. There's a, I don't know, there's the memory game where you've got the cards you flip over and you're supposed to try to like find the matching images, which is kind of fun. I don't always know if there's an instructional purpose in that. I don't know if anybody else here has been using H5P. I'd certainly be interested to hear like what kind of content types you find most interesting. We will get to be looking at them in the next phase of the workshop. So don't get too distracted by what kind of H5P stuff you're looking at. Just, see if like some of these resources are ways to help give you ideas. Of course, if you're working in an LMS, of course, yeah, you can do multiple choice pretty easy, but H5P offers quite a few other things that you don't really usually get in the learning management system or course management system. And so that versatility is good, as well as that the concept of reuse is built into all H5P content. When we get into actually manipulating them, you'll find out how you, if you create something, how you can sort of make sure that you get credit and you select what license you want it shared under, as well as every piece of media that you use in H5P. So if you're using images on a flashcard device, there's a place for every piece of media where you give the name, the author, the source, and the level. It's trying to promote in every way the reuse of open license media and content, and that's a good thing too. You're all very quiet. See, I don't even know. See, when you're doing this, it's like I could be talking to outer space. When really I'm just distracting everybody. Oh, there's a bubble of some sort.
Hey, Alan, I have a question for you.
Oh, okay.
Do we
Yeah.
do we know like research about which of these activities has been shown to be more effective over time?
People might be looking at it. I mean, there's so many things that would be interesting. It'd probably be context and subject dependent too. So if I was looking at it, I might want to, work within, either like a content that uses a lot of it and has been used, perhaps an open textbook that has a lot of these that's been used in different at different locations. I can't say offhand. I really know, like, like it is, is a multiple choice. Like it's a pretty broad question because there's good and bad multiple choice questions. The thing that I've noticed since looking at it, there are many places, and we specifically recommended a subset when, there's 41 tools, but we said, first of all, we're going to pick just the ones that have some kind of feedback that is given to students. And it could be as simple as like, right, wrong, score, or actually item specific feedback. And then we also one that give feedback and are also meet accessibility requirements. So those are the tools that we recommended. But in terms of the tool itself, it depends how it's used. And what I found when I started looking at a lot of H5P content is for the tools that provide feedback, a lot of people don't use it. I think it's also because the feedback interface is a little bit hidden. So for the most part, I see a lot of activities where, yeah, right, wrong, correct, incorrect is the only feedback you get. And so we've been encouraging people to learn, and we'll get to that in the second part, like where are the places you can actually offer a little bit more constructive feedback to students. Like, so if you got something wrong, like, well, either suggest where they should go to review it, or just something that would help them think about that exercise. But it's a question, like even practicing bad per se. I mean, if the questions are well done, I would think, as a learner, like, it's important for me to understand which safety standard I need to apply, if I'm a welder. And so doing practice again and again would be good with some very small activities. I'm blabbing right now. I mean,
no, that's good. No, I'm like trying to find that balance between the activities that are actually truly useful and do help like reinforce concepts versus those that are kind of busy work and they're fun, so we build them, but not necessarily fulfilling the pedagogical requirement. You see what I mean?
I see a lot of that, and this is where we got to have a lot of instructional designers in there, and it's something that not everybody sort of we're used, like a lot of people are used to like doing chapter end sort of like check your knowledge things. So what we've been trying to do with this project is like encourage our authors to put within context. So read about a concept, or or you're repeating something that you want them to go back to chapters, put something right there in the context that gives me a chance as I'm learning the material to do something practice that would reinforce it. Not necessarily to test whether I know which is the right answer, but can I do things, our first project out is about in the health field vital signs measurement. So it's very important to know procedures and steps and ways to where you take the pulse on someone. So they use the hot spots and some of the image comparison and some interactive video to show students how something is done, but also to do some little checks right in the context of watching that material. And so I think that's like some of the better bits. So it's not about any kind of summative feedback that we're trying to do here.
And I guess maybe it's too soon to know like about Pressbooks within Pressbooks, like user feedback on those books that were considered to be most useful or helpful. If there's any ranking of such in the Pressbooks directory.
I don't know about that. The Pressbooks directory is kind of like, they're pulling information from multiple Pressbooks site. I really don't know if they collect feedback. I will say what in the project that we did, we saw a lot of good use of, and they built it into their proposals. We had the people who were designing it actually doing some field tests and collecting feedback from students as they were creating and integrating these activities. And I think that really improved the overall process because they tried some things on the process before these Pressbooks go to the public directory. If you're doing any of these kind of projects, thinking about ways that you can involve testing, because of course as an author you get way too close to the forest and see all the trees, and of course getting some students in there to test it out, and not only for functionality, just like, is this even useful?
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to go back to finding my activity.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paula. All right, Kathy's found something, and she's already downloaded the Lumi app, so she's actually, you're ready for the third part, which is really good.
Ellen?
Yeah.
Serene has her hand up.
Okay.
Hi. This question actually might be for Cyan or for Regina. So I'm on the hp5.org website, and when I copy an embed code, I get a little message that says hp5.org is only for trying out H5P. The embed option will be limited soon. Do not use h5p.org to host real content. So if I take that H5P that I have created and upload it to Pressbooks, and then take the embed code from Pressbooks and put that into Canvas, is that stable?
Yes, that's stable. Sorry, I'm going to jump in and answer.
Yeah, thank you.
The reason H5P, like initially when it, like you could use it for that purpose, but it got so popular that I think they can't really support it at a big scale. So anything you create there, you shouldn't really use embed codes. But if you're working with a Pressbooks that's kind of in a network supported, like the Maricopa directory, those certainly should be used and because they're meant to be public reusable Pressbooks content. But if you are working between different platforms that support H5P, the more reliable way would actually be to download the H5P file and import it into another platform, and you would always have it there. But I would think embedding from a Pressbooks published public, and it has to be a public site, would be viable.
Okay, so it's better to take, because in Pressbooks I only have access to 4 different types of H5P content. So to go out to find the other types of content, like from h5p.org, although I'm sure there are others, it's best to take that content and upload it through Pressbooks and use Pressbooks as kind of the hosting site. And then if I don't necessarily want to have a whole Pressbooks, I just want that content to put into a Canvas module, I can use the embed code from Pressbooks. Is that the best way to do it, to put it into Canvas?
I would think so. Like as long as someone from the organization says like your Pressbooks is not going away. You could certainly use a Pressbooks interface to sort of just be, instead of a textbook that you are publishing, just to be kind of like a host for your H5P content. I've seen faculty do that.
Okay, so that will still, as long as Pressbooks still exists, barring another apocalypse, I will have a stable H5P content in Canvas. I'm just thinking, it's not going to go away, right? If it's in a module, it's still going to be there if my Pressbooks is still functioning, correct?
I would think so, as long as Maricopa keeps paying the bill, right?
Okay. So, yeah,
that's the big issue, right?
Yeah, confirm with the people running.
I just want to make sure if I'm, because just because if I'm creating the content and then all of a sudden it's gone, and because I don't have a place to host it, then I won't. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
What I would do if I'm really worried about that, Serene, is everything I upload to Pressbooks, I would download as an H5P file, so I have a backup. Like, and then you cover yourself. If the apocalypse happens, or if the asteroid hits the server, like in anything you do, like if possible, make sure you've got your own content you created somewhere you can store on a hard drive or a local file.
So I don't necessarily need, sorry, I don't totally understand all of like the back end technical aspects of this. So I don't necessarily need a hosting site for H5P content. It can be a standalone file. Is that correct?
Not really. You need to use it in a platform like Pressbooks that can provide that embed code
I do
capability.
Need a okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to like use it in Canvas, because you can't use H5P directly in Canvas. All right. I'm going to assume people are kind of moving along here. It's hard to get a temperature check, but hopefully you folks have found a couple things. I'm checking to see yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm looking at the form response. So some people have gotten in there. This part isn't like super critical to the workshop. I just think access and understanding about places you can find existing content. I'm gonna switch gears, and it's probably the thing that you want to do is because people want to get their hands into the dough and be doing H5P, right? So I'm going to do a little screen share again, and I will go back to my website. So really crashing on the metaphors here. We're going to be, I'm going to give you some hors d'oeuvres to use to get some H5P experience, because again, you go into H5P, you click something new, and you're like, oh my God, what do I do? So I wanted to provide a little bit more of an entry point for folks. So if you're new to H5P, for our project, we have a couple resources to get you started. Honestly, h5p.org, the site where the software comes from, probably has the best documentation. And so we've talked about already this place, where do I do my cooking? So where can I create stuff? And so for the most part, what I'm going to suggest, if for people who don't have access to something like was described earlier as a WordPress thing, and again, it doesn't really matter because the interface is the same. So at h5p.org, and many of you have done this, you can create a free account. And so I have one there where I can come in. And more or less what you're going to do when it's time to create is just click this try out H5P. And then more or less you're going to see this interface here. That is what you see whether you're in WordPress or Pressbooks or Drupal enabled. This is always the same. And that's really powerful. You may be like, oh, big deal. Let me get to the tools. But this is pretty critical. So I'm going to come back to that in a second. But my suggestion would be, for the purpose of this workshop, the easiest place to create stuff is on this h5p.org site, because it's free and you don't have to worry about getting an account, etc. The general purpose that I want to set up here is to give you a couple small activities. They aren't necessarily great or fantastic, but there's something that you can play with and get a feel for how they work. So I'm going to start with, this is not even mine, this is one that I found. And so the most basic thing is a true false question. So no, true, and it's wrong, and I get some feedback. So regardless of whatever H5P thing you want to work with, and have, I don't know, 8 down the page that you can play with. You can also use the one that you found in the first exercise. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is that you click this reuse button. And I'm going to download this thing as an H5P file. This gives me access to this thing that I can sort of take somewhere else. And that's really important. So for the most part, unless the author has disabled this, and some authors do, you can do this as an H5P author. If you can say, like, I don't want anybody reusing my stuff, they can disable that. But for most H5P content, you'll find this reuse button. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be back. No matter where I am. I'm in WordPress, you go to your dashboard and you go to H5P content, you create something new. You're going to come here. For the most part, when people create H5P content in this environment, they start with the tool. They say, oh, I'm going to do a flashcard thing, or I'm going to do, I don't know why I would do an advent calendar. I don't know what purpose that has. That means you're starting from scratch. But what you can do is you can start with something that exists somewhere as this H5P file. So you're going to want these H5P files that you found elsewhere, or you took from my hors d'oeuvre tray, somewhere where you can locate them. And so I'm going to use this really bad true-false question, and I'm going to select it with my file selector, and then I'm going to say use. And this means, well, I want to use this H5P content. So I've question. And so I chose this most basic one because it demonstrates everything that is important in doing H5P editing. One of the key things is, and I think people miss this consistently, is that built into every H5P kind of tool is a link to a tutorial. This goes back to the h5p.org site. It gives an example of what you create, some suggestions for when to use it, how do you create it, and it basically describes most, if not all, of the things that you do in this interface. So help is built in, an example is built into H5P, right into the tool. That's really important. So the very first thing is, and I tell you, 90% of the people miss this in H5P. You have to give it a title, of course. So I would say, like, give it a title that reflects Alan's, give it a title that reflects you. And a title, a lot of times I see people when they create authors, they'll use a title like, Chapter 4 Practice. That doesn't mean anything if someone else uses it. So when you give titles to your H5P content, think about a title that would work if it was standalone, if that was the only thing that you found. But there's more information that travels with your H5P with this thing called metadata, which sounds like not like a lot of fun, but it's really important. So again, you can change the title here as well. The other thing is you can change or select which license you want this shared. So this one came from somewhere else, so I'm going to pick the same license. So that because this is someone else's content, I'm going to reuse that. Really worry about the source would be, in this case, I found this from eCampus Ontario. So I decided to give them credit and I put it in there. If you're creating this yourself, it's going to put your name there as the author. And so if I was creating this from scratch, I would put myself in there as the author. But I'm not the author. And so I actually entered, like, if Wendy was the author, I would actually give Wendy credit. So this is a place where the person who created it gets the credit. Since this is someone else's H5P content, and Michelle didn't even put the metadata in there, I put it in there on my copy of it. And then also, you can put other little notes in there. So I always like to provide a lot of information. And I'll show you where that goes, but I really urge you not to forget about the metadata. I mean, you're all excited to go in there and rush and create the tools, but this stuff is really important because this will travel with this H5P content wherever it goes. And that's really important to be able to show the source and the image and the attribute and all that bit. With a true-false question, it's optional, but you can use an image. So if you want to change the image that's associated with this one, you click the image button, you pick a different image, and you can upload it. So if you decide, I really want to put a different image in there, that's really important and worth doing. You don't have to have an image, but you can put an image in a true-false. You can also put a video. You can put a link to a YouTube. So you can create a true-false question around a video piece of content. And again, this is the other place where metadata is important. So if you're using an image, actually, when I opened this one from the original source, they didn't give credit. I actually went to Unsplash and I found the original source of this. So if you use images in your H5P content, it's extra work, but it's really important to the ecosystem that you sort of give attribution for your material. And H5P, because it supports accessibility, it's going to require you to put alternative text for screen readers. So often in H5P, these things are hidden in these little toggle drawers, and I think that's why some people miss it. So if you want to change the statement, you can here, and you get kind of like a mini editor. So you can create kind of a long question for a true false. You can have a scenario. You can put paragraphs, and it looks like you can do bold, italic, subscript, superscript, and something else. Not a whole lot of formatting. Can't put pictures in the text, but this is where you would create or change the question. So I would, make orange environmental rules. It's a terrible true and false question. It's completely non. decide which is the right answer, true or false. In this case, this is false. And the feedback. So this one, when you open this drawer here, this gives you a number of options, and I'm not going to go into explaining them. You can certainly experiment them. If you don't want them to retry, you would disable this. If you don't want them to see the answer, you would disable that. The most key things, though, are the feedback. So you are correct is not really helpful feedback. So if I was doing this, I would really want to sort of give something a little bit more constructive or prescriptive about or reaffirming it, than saying you got the right answer or great job. Feedback should do more than that. It should give them something else to think about. And so you get feedback for the right answer, you get feedback for the wrong answer. Think about color of rules. So remember, my example makes no sense because I'm just making this up on the fly. Most important, and it's easy to forget, way in the bottom is a save button on h5p.org. In WordPress, I forget this often, you have to click a create button on the right side. I've done several times where I haven't saved my work in H5P and it disappears. So now I can see this thing that I created. Question?
Yeah, we have a question in the chat regarding metadata best practices. The question is, if we use the downloaded H5P as a template, but significantly alter the content, should you leave the original author as listed in the metadata?
That's a real judgment call. Like, I generally tend to, unless I've completely like changed everything, it gets to the degree of change, and don't ask me for a number. In my opinion, if I started with someone else's content, I should at least acknowledge them. If you don't want to name them as an author, you can use that notes field in the bottom and say like, I got the idea for this from James Slabucky, but I completely changed all the content. It bears no resemblance to the original. So you can explain that in the notes field of that. And I should show you right away where this shows up under rights of use. So the first thing you see is like the overall rights of use for the entire H5P bit. So that's from the first metadata field. So it's got the title, the license, the author, the source, and the notes that I added. And then if you added extra metadata for media, that also is included with this. That's where it shows up when you publish. In that case, I would probably make use of the notes field to explain. Like, I don't think anybody out there is like going, being the metadata cops or enforcing. It's more or less, we're academics, we're scholars. What's the right thing to do in terms of attributing sources? And we could discuss this till the sun sets, probably. But it's like if you don't give them credit, it's not like they're going to come after you and sue you. It's just, to me, it's like a nice acknowledgement if you did get inspired by someone else's work.
Kathy added in the chat that she saw that there's an originator option as well.
Yes. Yeah. That's a very good observation. Yeah, there's some other options beside author, and they can help. Honestly, like, don't feel like you have to go to the nth degree. Like, to me, attribution is like giving it your best effort. Some attribution is better than none. So I have this thing now. It's sitting on the h5p.org site. As we notice, if you click the embed button, it's going to say like, don't embed with this. It might not be here forever. So I would not embed from this. But for the most part, I have found that the link is not going to go away. Like, I have H5P content here from 6 years ago. So when you go to h5p.org, you might do save, change things around. What I would do is I click this view button, and this address at the top, h5p.org/node and a bunch of numbers, that's the link to the thing I created. So save that, because I'm asking you for that information on another form. That's mostly pertinent to your content for now. If you decide you want to bring it into Pressbooks, I would go to the reuse button and you can download this modified version. So this is a sort of a modification of a modification of H5P, but this H5P content can move into a different platform. You can import it into WordPress or to Pressbooks. So that's the basic with like probably one of the like not most exciting examples. So back, I've sort of outlined all the steps that I just tried to show you. Actually, look, I got pretty smart. I used an H5P hotspot to explain the H5P interface. So I love hotspots. They're pretty cool. That explains, I tried to like, rather than like listing out in text, like what all the buttons do, I could do it. So here's some examples that I've put together that you can play with. I thought, most of you are in Arizona, like you could create like one that shows you some of the most amazing places you've been that like not other people might know a lot about. So I love the Superstition Mountains. I used to hike out there all the time. I can even put a picture into a hotspot. So you can sort of like play with that. I mean, it's not really instructional, etc. But it can be useful exercise. So I created another one with the same base map where I want to go, like places I didn't get to. So I never got to see the thing. You know, I saw the billboards, but I never stopped to see it. So you can download this, you can delete my hotspots, you can add your own in the hotspot editor. You can also use some multiple choice ones. So I just pulled a couple multiple choice. Give with it. No. Well, this one has feedback for every answer. So you can play with feedback about feedback. Another one I found all about Pavlov. So multiple choice, nothing new under the sun about multiple choice, but there's a lot of flexibility with how many responses you can get and how detailed you can get with the feedback. This is that drag the words, which I think is pretty powerful. So more or less you take some text, you decide where some blanks are, and you need to understand the difference between systolic and diastolic pressure. This is from one of our projects. So in this one, they've got very specific feedback for this exercise. And so you can do some pretty complex ones with multiple blanks that you can drag across. This is a little bit different from what you get in terms of an interaction exercise. I gave you the more true and false, another one. If my hors d'oeuvres really smell like blue cheese, like there's not really good ones, you can go into the interface, you can create your own from scratch. If you really feel like you want to learn by just plunking around in the interface, you can do that. Or you can use the one that you downloaded from elsewhere. It's up to you on how to play. So I have, again, another form, hopefully if you share. And even as they come in, you can even see the results that have come in. And then just as a few extra resources, I have a whole post about the metadata contents. We have some things on feedback, etc. And I thought it was in here. To the next one. So I'm going to stop sharing, and because it's time for, you're probably already into H5P. We're getting to oh, look, everybody's answering the questions for me. Yeah, the use of H5P on itself, as we're doing in Pressbooks, is not doing any kind of scoring. That requires some advanced integration. It is technically possible, but you have to talk to your LMS administrators if that is set up to do. But technically, it is possible to do things to use H5P to have activities that report back to your system. I think I'm more interested in just sort of the things that you can put into your content that will help students learn and practice their knowledge. So that'll be typically to get that kind of integration, an organization would have to either like build the infrastructure themselves or H5P, like WordPress. There's like free WordPress at H5P .org. There's also a paid service that institutions can get at h5p.com that provide this kind of ability from H5P to talk to your LMS. But that's not a thing that too many institutions have. But, lobby your administrators. Tell them you want it. I can say that because I'm not at Maricopa right now. So hopefully I will see some action happening. I'm going to check. Anybody just wants to jump in with any questions? And of course, like I only explained the true and false tool. Every tool that you're going to get in there has a different kind of interface. So, the hotspot tool, you'll find you can change the icons. You can change the order. You delete hotspots. It could be a little bit hard to position them precisely because you get a tiny little preview. There's a magnifying glass where you can make the image a little bit bigger. But that was one little thing I found was a little bit tedious in the hotspot tool, was having to like place the hotspots and then go back and I view it and I'm like, oh, they're not lined up pretty. But in time, you'll figure that out. So I would say in hotspots, I would generally, for this first part, I kind of stick with the more granular tools because H5P has like some tools that are like smaller in scope, like for doing one kind of practice. And then they have tools which I've kind of outlined for the last part of the workshop, which we may not even get to because they actually are things that combine the attributes of some tools in of practice questions, drag words in something like the course presentation tool or the interactive video tool. Oh, look, and I see a typo. We're just getting into the last half hour, and hopefully folks are just motoring along on their own. Okay, for people, the desktop application, good, yeah. Lumi is you want to save it, and it's going to save it as a H5P file. Interesting to export something you create in Lumi as a single HTML file. So you can actually, if you have a web server somewhere or a place you can put full HTML, it can actually run standalone. I haven't done a lot of testing with it, but it's a rather interesting aspect of Lumi. But more so, as you notice that h5p.org only lets you use about 8 tools. Lumi gives you access to the full 41. Good catch, Michael. Thanks. And for Kathy and I'm curious what you think of the idea of the Lumi editor. I was kind of excited to find it because um, it provides like a whole different range of potential for people who want to try out H5P, who have the full access to all the tools. Oh, so quiet. John, speak up. John Gibson. I haven't even heard your voice. I'll tease John. Are you shy, John?
Whoops. I said, hi, Alan, I'm here.
Hey, good to see you. It's been forever.
I know it. I know it. It seems like
Yeah.
just yesterday. Hey, we're up to Pine 2 times this summer. Where was that on your map?
I sold my place Strawberry.
Mm,
Wasn't really viable to keep a home I couldn't even get to.
yeah, yeah. Well, thanks. I came
But
across your
yeah,
wonderful pictures on the web this summer.
oh, okay.
I do have a question for you, Alan.
Yeah.
I was poking around, I think, when you covered this, but on the h5p.org site,
Mhm.
I created an account, but where do I go to pull in that file and edit?
Okay, so let me go back to my screen share so I can show you for sure. Oops, hang on.
Thanks for picking on me.
Oh, I was hoping you would be up to it. Let me just.
You caught me at a good time. I had a question. Yeah.
I could say like that's the good intuition, like where the order. So are you seeing my screen right now?
I
So
am.
I'm
Yep.
in an H5P. So I'm going to log in. And so when you log in, you kind of get your home screen. It's this try out H5P
Oh
button.
yeah.
And I
Okay.
think I have a direct link in my web page that gets you to it. But that gets you to the basic editor where you can then say like I really want to try out. You know, it's a fun one. Where is it? Oh, it's not here because they don't have everyone. Yeah, this has.
Oh yeah.
You can do the hotspots here, flashcards. Interactive book is like way complex. That's like advanced level.
Right.
But I would try that or the course presentation one or fill in the blanks. You know, actually, you know, fill in the blanks is like old too, but doing it actively would be fun to see you do.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I did get that page, but I didn't see the upload it on the top of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
So
stopped screen. Let me go back. Yeah,
no, it's okay. I got
yeah,
it.
it says it's not obvious. There's create content and then there's upload. And there's radio buttons at the very top.
Yeah. Okay. Boy, thanks. We're off and running here.
That's good.
You
That's
gave us a
good.
lot to play with. I appreciate
I hope so.
it.
So yeah, for Kathy, like where to host your H5P content. Um, if you don't really have a platform, I mean, some of the options kind of, you know, you'd want to be getting your own self-hosted WordPress and install the WordPress plugin. Um, that's about you can see you can get the service from h5p.com. I don't remember what it costs, but you know they do provide that you know for as a service too if you want to have a reliable place where your stuff is hosted. The upload button. Yep, I'll show you right away. I really like that you folks are asking questions. So I'm just going to get it lined up. So when I share from WebEx, you'll get to see something different. Okay, so here I am at h5p.org. When I log in, or I guess it's wherever if I am logged in, if I click my account, I'll end up in this same place. And it's this little button that says try out H5P. That's the place that gets you to the editor. And then as I tried to explain to John, I went way too fast. It's like most people start with the tools, but if you click the upload button, that's where you get to upload the thing that you created. And I will make sure I put that link in the chat too. Now, I think, I've tried this before, h5p.org only lets you use like those 8 tools, but if you created an H5P in like Lumi or somewhere else in a different tool, I think you could still upload it in there. So you can certainly sneak stuff in there, but again, it's not going to be reliable to use as a host for your content. So we're kind of at the 20-minute away from the endpoint here. How are we doing, folks? And we probably will not get to all the material that I put together, but it's here for you to come back to. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's fine, Renee. That's totally typical. It's there are many layers of complexity to this, but it definitely is something that will improve as you get some practice. The most important things are sort of this understanding about the basic steps of editing and where you put your things. That's good. Thank you, Kathy. I'm still learning. Like, I don't even know how to use again, I really encourage you, h5p.org, every tool has examples and these actually fairly well written tutorials that will show you how to use each particular tool. Sometimes they miss a step, but that's okay. But their documentation is actually some of the better that I've seen in a while. And there's also, when you create an account at h5p.org, I have a link in my last section of there's a forum, a place you can ask questions and get help too, or you can say like, oh, I got an error message, like, and so the software developers are there as well. So if you have a problem, or if you have a feature request, it's like, the flashcards are great, but there's no ability to add feedback. Can you add that in? So make use of the forums too, because there's a large community of people fight. And so, yes, I did jam about 6 hours of probably workshop material into a 1.5 hour workshop. That's Kathy's asking. I guess is that PIMA, PCC? But another really good strategy is find other people in your institution or your department who are doing this. It's better. Oh, yeah, Josie's here. Great. And connect. Like there's no reason to kind of bang your head against the wall alone. I know when I started teaching my my media classes, I'd read in my students' reflections that they spent like 2 hours trying to figure out how to do a single thing, and I realized like nobody should spend long. I institute a thing called the 15-minute rule. So if you're trying to figure out something with anything, but with technology, you've looked at a YouTube video, you've Googled the error message a couple times. If you haven't found an answer in 15 minutes, it's just like stop and reach out to someone, either a colleague or your instructor. But you should never belabor and try to figure out things that long. And I say that, and I've seen people on this project. Most people are reluctant to ask for help. What website platform did I use to post the work today? That's a WordPress site. It comes from opened.ca, is part of OpenEd. It's a cooperative service, so any educator in British Columbia can get a free WordPress site. But yeah, it's just WordPress and WordPress with an H5P plugin that gives that functionality. I'm a bit of a WordPress junkie. I love WordPress. So we are in the closing lap of this thing, and so I'm happy people have gotten some experience with H5P. I'm just going to do one more thing here, and oh look, I'm sharing my calendar. That wasn't the window that I wanted. You can see what I'm doing. Anyhow, just to let you know, like we didn't actually get to more complex dishes. So in the third part of this workshop, Kathy actually got to Lumi, which is this desktop application. But I gave a little breakdown of some of the more comprehensive H5P tools. So they're almost like tools that have tools within them. And so I have some links for each one of these if you're curious about what they do. I love this thing about content types as a periodic table. And I'm usually a little bit dismissive of periodic tables sometimes as an interface, but this one actually works if we have any scientists in the room in terms of the structure of periodic tables. So these are all the H5P tools, and it moves like easy to create to more difficult on going across to the right. And then it has like some of the media type capabilities below. And so each one of these elements, I can click on, and it gives me advanced fill in the blanks. So describes the tool, gives a couple general suggestions. Oh, look, they have a typo too. And links to where you can get it used. And the best part about this thing, this is built in H5P. So this is the course presentation tool, which allows you to do slides, but also you can have links from one slide to the other. So this is describing the interactive video tool. So I like that they give some suggestions for the type of tool that can be used. So you might find this as something useful to help you understand the different tools. I provided a couple more comprehensive H5P things if you want. Again, you want to play with some other people's content. Even I didn't even get to. There is a branching scenario. So your own games, sort of choose your own adventure games, or things that give students multiple branching pathways through content. It's pretty crazy and fantastic. Just want to let you know a few more things that I have stuck on the end of the site. So to let you know that how to contact me, but also, oh, where'd that all go? All right, some links. So if you want to, be part of this project that I'm involved with, this website that I'm using is where we post all the news about the projects. We actually have a collaboration community that's running Mattermost, which is kind of like an open source Slack, but actually that's open for anybody to join. And we run webinars every month with our new round of projects starting up third week in March. These do attend or watch the previews, and we have a good selection of some practitioners using H5P, some people with good technical experience, and so we just provide and make these available openly. Yeah, the branching activity, Stephanie, is really interesting. That it's one of the more complex tools to do. I did one that like it had so many things in it you couldn't see it when it was zoomed out. So it's pretty powerful. And I think about it, branching scenario is something that takes, you should actually plan that whole thing on paper before you get it in there. What does H5P do that Canvas can't? Well, it's not the same thing. I mean, Canvas is a course management system. H5P, some of these interaction types you don't get within Canvas, but with the embed codes, which are HTML iframes, so you can sort of augment. It's not necessarily using them in place or in lieu of what Canvas can do, but to be able to give some capabilities that you don't get in Canvas. So, Canvas, I assume you get your basic kind of fill in the blank, multiple choice stuff. That goes in the gradebook, which is good. So if you're looking for gradebook stuff, that one may not be accessible, but a lot of the activities and interactions in H5P you don't get in Canvas. The drag images, the image comparison, the interactive video, the capability to do something complex in that course presentation tool. That's a terrible name for it because it's for high interactive content, which can be slides, but can also be multiple choice quizzes and interactive, but also it can be non-linear. That's something that you can't easily do in an LMS. I opened it in Lumi. There seemed to be a bit of a learning curve. Well, yeah. The thing with Lumi is you have to go to the, it's got, Lumi has two different parts to it, so make sure you go to the H5P editor. But that pretty much gives you everything within the H5P interface that lets you create tools. But yeah, in terms of learning what the different tools do, there's definitely a learning curve. I will not deny that, Stephanie. But again, follow all the links in the tool, at the top, link for each one that offers and offers examples for what you can do. Yeah, Michael, but that is true with anything in H5P. I have been working in WordPress H5P, and I accidentally swiped my screen and went to the previous page, and I completely lost everything that I did in H5P. So whether you're working in Pressbooks or WordPress or even H5P.org or Lumi, it's a good idea just to periodically save your stuff. Because yeah, if you close, there's no coming back. So my throat is parched, which means I've been talking way too much. Okay, Carla's got an announcement. Take the mic. Okay. Get your FPG. Faculty Professional Growth is a fantastic thing.
Thank you, Alan. I just start seeing people drop in now and leaving the meeting because I'm assuming they have a 3:30 meeting, and so I wanted to make sure we get that announcement in the FPG. If you're applying for, please make sure you are submitting everything, and make sure you take the evaluation assessment, which I'm putting here the link directly to it. But thank you, Alan. This was amazing. I had fun playing around with it. I don't know about everybody else, but it was really fun.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Alan.
Cyan, do you want to close us out?
Thanks, Alan.
Yes, thank you, everyone, for coming and participating in this month of open educational resources in the Arizona Regional OER Conference. I hope that you have taken away a lot of really useful information and resources. And again, everything's going to be available on the MCL website and other additional places. So thank you, and have a great weekend. Oh, and I guess next week is open education, isn't it? It starts next week. I'm like, whoa, we're already to March. What's going on here?